everyone, welcome to some post-match thoughts on the draw against Fulham. You would think a 1-1 draw away against Fulham wouldn't be so much reason for panic, but I'm seriously concerned. And the reasons I'm worried are probably maybe different to the reasons you're worried, same as the reasons you're worried. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I've got my views of things in general. If you come to the channel to watch the video to say, I want you to scream manager out, not going to happen. Sorry. I'm going to put blame, certainly. Everybody has to take responsibility. When you're not getting good results, it is a group thing, and there are no doubt things that the manager has to do better, that the manager has to get right, and I want to talk about those things as well. But I want to talk about specifically why the game has happened in this case and why things have gone the way that they have. If we take a look at the match in general and look at the stats, I want to talk through it in the state of, essentially what is a game state, what is actually what has happened here. I want to talk about how this game went and how it essentially unraveled from what should have been a very promising start to where it ended up in the end, and why. And it's really quite bothersome. United started out quite good, actually. First 10-15 minutes were really strong, created chances. Cunha was flying. Got in there, hit the post one time, also got through, had a big chance, hit the post, got a big chance. Probably should have scored one, if not two goals. And if he does, obviously that changes the entire landscape of the game and how it looks. But he didn't. It's unfortunate. That was rough. Then the game was a little bit back and forth. I thought United were quite stagnant at that point in time for a good 10-15 minutes there. They weren't really in control. Then they gained control back again. They were starting to push. They were starting to attack. They were getting corners. They were getting attacks. They were starting to regain a bit of momentum in it. And then Bruno steps up. And we need to talk about Bruno. I said in the first game against Arsenal, I thought he was really poor, especially in the first half, that he made a big mistake in what led to the goal. And I said I thought that he was quite poor in general in terms of what we saw on the pitch. A lot of people didn't seem to agree, maybe because some other reasons. I don't know. I'm very worried about Bruno. This was maybe Bruno's worst game at United. I was really unhappy with him. And the reason I was really unhappy with him is because ultimately, to me, it looked like Bruno was entirely unfocused. He steps up for the penalty, gets a little bump from the referee, makes a fucking meal of it. For multiple minutes, makes a big deal out of it, and is still whining to the ref after halftime. Steps up, shoots the penalty into the fucking stadium. Oops, dramatic effect there. Shoots the penalty into the stadium. For what? Why? What is going on in his head? He was completely unfocused, He was really poor. And I'm very worried. I'm very worried because after it kind of worked to get in week one, in the preview to this game, I said, I'll ride with it, the Bruno Casemiro midfield. But I did raise a specific concern. I said, in a game where we're expected to get up the pitch more, and you can't just sit deep and send long balls into the channels because Arsenal have a high line, want to press, want to have possession, when you can't just do that, when you can't just exploit that one thing that Casemiro and Bruno exploited in game one, and Casemiro exploited better than Bruno, is it the right pairing? And the answer is no. We have the same problems we've had before, the constant launching of the ball. Here's my concern. Ruben Amorim's system, I've said before, is not about the midfield. And the problem is, because he's picked Bruno and Casemiro, he's making it about the midfield. It's not supposed to have two guys trying to constantly spray passes around and turn the ball over from the midfield. It's not supposed to. Look at the numbers on this. It's not supposed to be like this. It's not supposed to have 69% from your number 6 turning the ball away with 6 long balls. It's not supposed to have that. It's not supposed to have spraying 8 long balls with only 3 accurate from your other ones. It's not supposed to. They're supposed to simply be guys who run around, work hard, win the ball back, dribble, into the spaces, help move the ball to the wide areas, and help make overloads so that you can drop the 10s and the 10s can progress the ball and the center backs can progress the ball. Today, totally backwards. Totally wrong. Everything was trying to run through that midfield again. That's not what it's supposed to be. Some of this, I think, again, was a consequence of essentially not putting the striker on, which I get it. If he's not fully fit, needs to get on, needs to have a striker running into the channel so that the 10s can drop into the midfield to help progress the ball. The wing backs need to do better, but largely it comes down to the midfield should not be so influential. They shouldn't be doing what they're doing. When you look at it, 55 touches for Dorgu in the game, 73 for Bruno. It's wrong. It's wrong. That's not who's supposed to be touching the ball so much. And you look at the 10s, how they struggle to get involved. Mason Mount played for 69 minutes, had 29 touches. Cunha, 43 touches. And he was like, you take a look at what Cunha was doing, he was trying everything to drop in deep to get involved. And he played that full 90 minutes. This isn't okay. This should not be happening in this system. And the problem is by it happening, everything is running through Bruno. That's not Amorim's system. It's something wrong with his system, but he's making the choice that has created this problem. He is making it a team that runs through Bruno. That's every team we've had. We got to stop. At some point, we have to stop. We cannot keep living and dying by the Bruno because he's been inconsistent at best for some time. And then there's moments like this today that are, to me, just as inexcusable and unforgivable. Missing the pen is as inexcusable and unforgivable as it is giving away a goal when you're the keeper. But then more than that, it's things like this. And I don't want to get copyrighted, so I don't want to play it too much. But you take Bruno in this position, and he's standing here. Look at how much space there is. Okay? What should happen here? He should be moving up immediately with the ball, driving forward, creating gaps, finding the spaces in here. Instead, what does he do? Stands, kind of points, tells people what to do, is trying to instruct, is trying to do things, lets the defense get set. Look, he's got a player wide open out here to pass it to, and he just stands there and lets the ball get taken off of him. This is 3 minutes after he misses his penalty. It's unacceptable. This kind of stuff cannot go on. This kind of stuff cannot continue. This is the type of thing that will kill us. And to me, it's really, really not the way that United want to play. It's really not the way that United should be playing under Ruben Amorim. A Ruben Amorim team, as we've discussed and we even saw many times in preseason and even a bit against Arsenal, is supposed to be a free-flowing team where the 10s are dropping in, adding numbers to the midfield, receiving the ball, carrying it on the turn, getting out of pressure. The wingbacks are supposed to stay high and wide, but instead, because the midfield has become such a focal point through Bruno and through Casemiro, where they constantly are getting on the ball and losing it and launching it and slowing play down and stopping the tempo instead of just getting it, dribbling to a side quickly, shuttling it on, it's slowing the entire game down. That clip, this example right here of what happens in this is, to me, the worst possible thing that could happen to Ruben Amorim football, because this is not what it's supposed to look like. Look at all the players available. Just look at this. Even outside of just losing the ball, look at all the players available. What is the midfielder supposed to do? Drive forward, drag somebody, send the ball out wide to Lenny Yoro so you can attack down the other side, get the ball out wide so you can get it out into the final third and in. Or send the ball down this side. Instead, what is he doing? Sitting, trying to instruct and find some perfect angle to play. Look at all this space. This is a system built on getting the ball out wide quickly and having the center backs aggressively attack up the pitch. Look at the space in front of Shaw. Look at the space in front of Lenny. Instead of using that, look at all the mids. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 players forming a diamond around the middle. And what is Bruno trying to do? Play through the middle. This isn't football. This isn't what Ruben Amorim wants from his team, or at least it wasn't. This is a game that in many instances should have been put to bed at 41 minutes. But even with that, there are serious concerns to me in the way that we're playing, because for me, it doesn't reflect the way that Amorim wants to play or has wanted to play. But that's what it comes down to with him. Prior to the Europa League final, I said my biggest concern was why he switched the midfield from two hardworking midfielders to this Bruno Casemiro combination that's all about playmaking, but slows the game down, doesn't have the legs, out of possession, and all of that. Now, Fulham have come out. I don't particularly care for these kinds of comments because it's every time any team wins, they can tell you exactly how they beat the other team. Thomas Frank could come out and tell you exactly how he beat Pep Guardiola in 2 sentences. It doesn't make Pep's system bad. It just means it is what it is. However, what they're saying is that in that is correct. They were able to exploit the space behind the midfielders. Why? Because we have 2 slow-ass midfielders who can't defend off the ball and don't have the energy. This isn't... my biggest concern is that Ruben Amorim has compromised on the principles that he wanted to lay down, like every manager before him, and it becomes the Bruno Fernandes show again. And it's just another team that looks exactly the same. Because when you look at it, it feels like it's the same game as ever. Goes into Bruno, wait for him to try to make a play. It either comes off or it doesn't. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. That's not what this football is supposed to look like. We had some of our best performances of the season with Ugarte and Mainu in there, like Liverpool away at Anfield, some of the best team performances where it was everybody working together doing the things that they're supposed to. The other concern that I have here is if Mainu is supposed to compete with Bruno, then Bruno should be dropped. And this is where it comes to the manager. Week 1, it worked against Arsenal because there was a lot of space to exploit and it was a good matchup for Bruno and Casemiro. They could sit and they could send those balls in behind. And there was a lot of space to exploit in that game. Against Fulham, there wasn't so many spaces to exploit in that game. What we needed was a lot of energy because they added bodies to the midfield. We needed those midfielders to have the legs, the energy to move the ball out of there quickly so we could attack the areas where Fulham were not. Because that is exactly what they did. And that's what most teams are going to do. They're going to overload the middle and they're going to give you some spaces out wide. This is what essentially Fulham did in this case, is they left the spaces over there. Like you can see in that image, there were so many times we could have easily just switched the ball to the other side quickly, attacked the space, but they were too scared to do so because instead of having 2 midfielders who are hard workers, you have 2 ball players, and it's just not right. Ruben picked this. He can't stick with this. It's not going to work for most games. It's just not. I don't have the answer, but what I do know is that the midfield, when I say that it's weak, when I say that it's not the problem, what I'm talking about is it doesn't need the best players in the world. He never had the best midfielders in the world at Sporting. That's not the way he played football. But by playing the way we're playing now with Bruno and Casemiro, we're putting all the focus on those 2 players for the whole game to run through them, and that's bad. So I'm not sure what the answer is here, but that's what makes me really, really concerned. It can't be this way. Poor game from Bruno, poor from Casemiro. He cannot get up and down. We've seen that. The center backs were not as aggressive as I wanted, but the ball cannot keep running through Bruno Fernandes every second or we will not win games. It is not how this system works. It's not supposed to be the Bruno show. It is supposed to be played through the entire team. Not nearly enough touches for Mount in the 10. Not nearly enough touches. And Mbumo, I don't think he had a good game. He also only had 32 touches and 13 passes. It's not enough. The 10s are supposed to touch the ball a lot. In this system, these guys should be touching the ball a lot from these 10s positions. 90 minutes, 32 touches. 90 minutes, 73. This is wrong. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Ruben Amorim has to make changes. And he is culpable because he, along with the management team, said, I need attackers, I need forwards, I need people to go score. I agree. But then, if you're going to do that, why did you switch to a midfield that doesn't work? Instead of just going with hardworking, good midfielders, basic midfielders doing the basic stuff, shuttling the ball out to these forwards and having them get the ball in the positions you want them to pick it up. Why change it? Because if you were going to do this, you couldn't do this without spending $100 million on your midfield, which you haven't done. This wasn't going to work unless you were going to get Baleba in there to play next to Bruno. So if you weren't planning to do that, and you won't put Ugarte in there, and you're going to run it with Casemiro, and you're going to make that the focal point, then you're going to have problems. So I'm worried. I'm really worried. This was much more worrisome for me because I can still see how things can work, but they won't work like that. My biggest concern is that we're not going to play the way that the manager usually plays, and we're compromising again. And I think that's how we'll fail. So, I don't know. I'm probably not being super cohesive with my thoughts on this, but I'm stressed out about it. I'm worried. I'm concerned. Immediately, if it's a competition for Kobbie Mainoo with Bruno Fernandes, then he has to be able to be dropped. And I think that bothers me more than anything. The changes that were made in the game. The game should have been put away. 2-3-0 in the first half. It should have. But the poor performance from Bruno, there should have been consequences. Kobbie Mainoo should have come on at halftime. Bruno's head was not in it. The complaints about the referee not apologizing to him afterwards are terrible. You cannot do that. You can't. You cannot be that way as United's captain. Really, really let me down on that front. I'm really unhappy with that at this point. But Ruben Amorim should have taken him off. Ruben Amorim should have taken Bruno and Casemiro off at halftime, put on Ugarte and Mainoo, and then replaced Mount with Šeško later on. That's what he should have done. It's a blind spot, and blind spots will kill you. Blind spots will get you sacked. Most managers have them. You have to worry about how dangerous they are. I think Bruno's been the worst player at United in the first 2 games so far, and arguably has cost us almost a full 3-goal swing already. On the goal that United concede as well, it is Bruno's runner. Smith Rowe is right next to Bruno. He's supposed to mark him, and he doesn't. So all else aside, we would have won this game. Didn't mark his runner deep. So there has to be consequences. If it was Ugarte, can you imagine if Ugarte had a game where he missed a penalty, misplaced tons of passes, stood on the ball and got it turned over like the clip we showed, and didn't mark his runner for a goal? I don't think he's ever had a game that bad at United, and he gets way more heat. Now, obviously, Bruno's contributions have been huge, but the point is, right now, today, he's not performing. There has to be consequences for that, especially when Kobbie Mainoo can't get on the pitch. I'm okay with Kobbie being the competition for Bruno. Then he should start. Then he should start against Grimsby, and if they win, he should start against Burnley, and then you keep it going from there, depending on how it goes, and you make people earn their places based on playing the way you want and playing successfully. Otherwise, it's all for naught. The consequences can't just be for some players and not for others. You know, I don't think that that's fair. I don't think it's fair for Bruno and Casemiro to get away with the kind of stuff they've been getting away with and keep starting, because they were both bad in preseason, and then they start the season as the starting pair, and now they've been terrible. They can't keep getting off the hook just because they're seniors or older or whatever. I don't know. They can't. We have to be able to make changes. We have to be able to have consequences for everybody. That's how I see it. I also want to say Bayindier's goalkeeping on set pieces is so bad. It's really hard to know how much that affects the team. It was so bad. So bad. It was like he was constantly on the ground every corner. We are really lucky we didn't let in another goal from all those corners. Those are my thoughts today. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. I'll see you in the next one.